everyone. Welcome to the Talkoffame podcast. And we are so excited to have Amber Viola joining us today. Amber is a host and producer of Politics But Make It Fashion podcast, where to discuss intersectionally between politics, fashion, pop culture, motherhood, and more. And she's also a veteran and activist. I've been following Amber's work for a couple months now, and she's doing such amazing work, and she's also from lives in my hometown in Northeast PA, so it's also good to have a native here on a podcast. But thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time
Thank
out of your
you.
busy schedule. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm
Absolutely.
honored.
Thank you so much. So, if people are don't know too much about your work or not familiar with it, like tell us kind of a little bit more about you and your work.
So I am a social worker, I guess, by trade. I went to Marywood University, which is in NEPA. And so right now I consider myself a writer, a community activist. I give a lot of speeches. I do a lot of speaking engagements. I really want to work within my community. Being from NEPA, I love the area. I think it's amazing. And so I want to help my community get better. And so for like talking about different issues that are facing the Black and Brown communities of NEPA is something I'm super passionate about. And just all around, kind of just helping people. That's always what I wanted to do. And I kind of figured out a way to be able to do it. And it's kind of like my job now.
Yeah, so of course from being Northeast PA, like there's so many like opportunities to make a difference
Mhm.
for different organizations, nonprofits, businesses. There's so many like ways you can get involved. And for me, I spend basically all my free time volunteering as
Yeah.
like you are. But of course, you host a podcast, which I love, called Politics to Make It Fashion Podcast. Like, of course, like with all the amazing things you were doing, but what kind of got you into podcasting to add it on?
So I love to talk and I love talking about the things that are taboo, like politics and religion, like what's your darkest secret? I like to interview people and ask questions. So it kind of just became a natural thing. I did have a lot of my friends and family tell me, oh, you should start your own podcast because I originally started off doing a lot of guest spots on people's podcast and just talking about the things I was involved in, talking about being a veteran, a mother, and different things. So I was like, okay, well, I kind of want to do my own. And
Mhm.
I love pop culture. The Oscar nominees just came
Oh
out.
yeah.
So I was looking through the what movies I needed to still watch and get done. But I also love politics and I love
Mhm.
how politics infiltrates every aspect of our life. And I wanted to be able to inform people during the 2016 election. There was just so much misinformation and so many people I saw posting things online that just were not true at all.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wanted to try to throw my hat in there to try to inform people. Maybe people will listen to me. I don't know.
I love it. Like I'm the same exact person. Like I love politics and pop culture. Like if there's anything pop culture or politics I see, I'm in it. Like I will
Hmm.
find everything about it, all the sources. And basically a podcasting, everyone always said I was a talker. Well, growing up I wasn't, but now I am. I love asking questions about things. When someone says something, I love to say, like ask them a question about it. But I'm kind
Yeah.
of curious, like with the New Hampshire primaries going on right now. But of course, when this episode's uploaded, it'll be finished, like and done. But in your opinion, what do you think is gonna happen in New Hampshire? Like, who do you think is gonna win?
I'm not sure because I was watching the news today and there's a lot of write-ins
Hmm.
for Biden. So I think it might be one of those things where people aren't sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
A lot of our polling in 2016 and then again and like 2020 were very wrong.
Oh,
I don't think we really know how people are going to vote and what people are going to do. I still think it's going to end up being between Trump and Joe Biden, unfortunately. And my question to everybody is this the best that America has to offer? How do we feel comfortable with these two candidates? I don't. And I think a lot of other people don't as well. But, here we are now, trying to deal with it.
yeah. Like I honestly like think the same thing. Like, of course, with Joe and Biden, it's probably gonna be the same.
Hmm.
like can't like the same election as 2020. Of course, there's a lot of things that happened with the 2020 election, and still is kind of a big talk about, okay, did Biden actually win?
Right.
There's a
Right.
lot of kind of talks about that, and like it's kind of like crazy to see like, okay, is there gonna be a 2020 rematch in
Yeah, it
2024?
is. And what's crazy to me is, so when people say like Joe Biden didn't win and he's like an invalid president, I ask them, well, what about everybody else down ballot?
Hmm.
Are they, because a lot of Republicans won seats, won offices, and won elections the same way that Joe Biden did on the
Hmm.
2020 thing. So like, are they all invalid or just him? Like
Yeah, and
what?
plus with 2020, we also got mail-in ballots as well due to COVID. So
Hmm.
I don't know, like if we thought, or this like that was like the first time we had mail-in ballots. In previous years, due to the COVID-19 pandemic during that time, and I think we might have mail-in ballots this year. I'm not sure. I think we're probably
Yeah, I mean,
going to.
we should. Being in the military, I voted absentee a lot because my home record is PA.
Hmm.
So I would still participate in all of our elections through that. And most active duty members, they vote by absentee ballot.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so I've always trusted in that system, and it was never a new thing to me. I think people just didn't realize how many people really did use it.
Hmm.
You know, I'm here visiting my brother. He's voted absentee ballot as well because he's active duty. And so that's just, how do you think we vote on deployments or when we're stationed overseas? And also people who can't get around. So you have a lot of older people who voted by mail and stuff like that before. I think it just wasn't this hot topic that it is now, but it definitely was happening. And I think that more people will vote if they have the opportunity to vote like that, because
Hmm.
election day isn't a holiday in our country. So most people are still working and
Yeah.
can't get off to be able to go vote. So they don't have it's either don't vote or vote by mail, you know?
Yeah, like that's so interesting. I never knew that veterans are allowed to do that. That's so interesting. I never knew
Mhm.
that. And of course, with mail-in ballots, I think it's a good opportunity for people that are maybe are in the military, or if they are don't have a car to go in there, if they're in work.
Right, right.
Maybe so. I know with a lot of people, they don't have opportunities to go and go out to vote, whether it's like work, having a car, or there's many
Hmm.
purposes that you can go out and vote, you know?
Right.
So of course, mail-in ballots are a big opportunity for people to get actually to vote, even if it's through mail. You know, it's always
Right.
the same
Yeah.
experience. As long as you're voting, and that's the most important thing. It's a civil duty. It's not
Hmm.
mandatory, but it's always recommended. But what are some kind of news stories in today's world, whether it's pop culture, politics, that kind of stick out to you?
So I was actually reading today about Kim Kardashian
Mm,
and how she's going to be the face again of Balenciaga. For those who don't know me, I love the Kardashians. I love Kim K. I don't
oh,
care,
same.
unapologetic about it. But something I recently talked about on my podcast was private equity firms buying up hospitals and nursing homes, and how the after effects of those are terrible, and how people start dying. The health outcomes are a lot worse. And then Kim Kardashian ties into this because she just started her own private equity firm called Sky Partners.
Hmm.
And it just was crazy to me how we have all these different groups setting up all these private equity firms, and then they start buying up things that should be public. And that's why a lot of these things I feel like are really connected together. And you can kind of see the pieces moving around, because also it starts when people start buying up schools and creating charter schools. There's private equity firms that own schools that are teaching our kids and things like that. And the outcomes, what are they like? They're normally a lot worse. So I'm excited to see kind of what things the Sky Partners is going to start buying up the with Kim, and we'll kind of see how it plays out. But that's something that really kind of stuck in my mind, of two separate, completely separate entities, but are kind of very similar and have a lot of things that are crossing over.
I had no idea that was such like that was a thing. I didn't know Kim K had like a firm like that. I have to look into
She
that.
did. It's only about a year. I think it's about a year old now.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
That's crap. I don't know how if it's been existent for years. I did not know about it. Now it's bothering me. Is Kim K your favorite Kardashian, or do you have someone else?
Yes, yes, she is.
Yeah,
She
she's like I
definitely
love
is.
Kim K.
Me
She's my
too.
favorite, but she's also a mood that often describes me in different times.
Yes, exactly, 100%.
And so, like you said earlier in the podcast, you are a United States veteran. Like, how'd you kind of handle like your mental health during that period of your life? Because I know with being a veteran and serving, it can really take a toll on your mental health.
When I saw that question, it made me laugh because I was like, I didn't. When I was active duty, and this goes for a lot of active duty service members, I was in the Navy. So I worked with, my job was working with guns. I was a gunner's mate. So I trained people on weapons and I had a security clearance and things like that. So if you are in that position and you say, hey, I need to talk to somebody about my mental health, that's all going to go away. I wouldn't have been able to work with guns and weapons anymore, and I wouldn't have been able to keep my clearance. So I didn't, I didn't talk about it. I didn't really say anything. When I finally started getting mental health help when I was in the military was actually when I knew I was getting out. I was about 5 months out before I got out, and I went to go talk to like a therapist and a counselor and things like that for postpartum depression. But I knew I was getting out, so I felt very comfortable with doing that.
Mhm.
Um, and I totally understand why people in a lot of jobs don't. The same goes for like police, firefighters, all of those different things you have when it comes to your mental health, it can affect your job.
Yeah, like of course with being in the military, I come from people that in the military that serve the Navy, Army, and stuff. So of course with being in the military, it can really cause postpartum depression or depression for the rest of your life, different kinds of because there's a bunch of them that people deal with. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, with mental health, it really does because of course you're experiencing not a lot of people are experiencing. So it really is a matter that is something to really kind of focus on and be sometimes like you said you might be like you're probably scared to get help even
Mm-hmm.
though to get of course with being in the military a lot of people are holding off on their feelings because they're supposed to be
Yeah.
tough people in the military usually like keep it hold it back a lot so like
Mm-hmm.
I really applaud you for really doing that. That's such an amazing thing that you did.
Oh, thank you. I had a veteran actually tell me a story at the VA, probably like a couple months ago, where he went and got help while he was in, and his boss picked him up from the like psych hospital and basically cussed him out and berated him for the like 30-minute car ride back to his house. Just utterly destroyed him, called him every name under the sun, called him weak, pathetic, like all of these things because he went and said he needed help, and those things are still happening. So we need to do better.
No, that's awful. Like, was he still serving or was he
No,
kind of
now he was a veteran. So we were talking at the VA, and he had got out, but he started crying. It was just so real for him and still caused so much pain.
yeah, like was this at the VA down in Wilkes-Barre or was it
Yes,
at a different VA?
at the VA in Wilkes-Barre.
Or like I know with a lot of like military veterans going back into like those kind of mindsets and memories can bring
Mm-hmm.
so many traumatic events because I know some people in my family or people that I know do not like to talk about because it is
Right.
like doesn't like sit right with them. This is
Mm-hmm.
some people they just don't want to talk about it because it might be one of the worst experiences of their life, or
Right.
they just don't want to bring up that memory because it can be such a traumatic event.
Yeah. And what's crazy is the amount of people that will ask a veteran, like, oh, have you killed anybody? And I'm like, why
Oh
would
yeah.
you? Do you really want to know the answer to that? And also, do you want this person to now have a breakdown? Like, what kind of question is that?
Yeah, and that
You're,
especially if it's like a little kid, they're like, "Oh, no, I don't know." Like, I don't know if I should answer that or should I
right.
let him bawl his eyes out? That's a hard question.
Right.
But like, what was it kind of like for you while serving?
It was, I mean, it was an adventure. Like, it definitely was a lot of fun at times. I learned a lot of stuff, and it was really hard. You have to push yourself harder than you ever think that you would. So I came from NEPA, so I liked guns already. So the working with the weapons and guns part, that was pretty fun. Honestly, the tough part was just being a woman and then being a Black woman
Hmm.
because I worked with a lot of straight white conservative dudes. Like,
Hmm.
that was, I was often the only woman in my job and often the only Black person in my job. So those types of things, dealing with racism and sexism, that was the hardest part. It wasn't the job, it wasn't really the deployments and stuff. It was dealing with that BS on a daily basis. But as far as the job goes, I loved it. I got to drive the aircraft carrier. That was part of my job. And, I got to see a lot of cool places. And it let me able to me to get my master's degree. So,
Ooh.
you know,
Yeah, like, of course, with being from a Northeast PA, like it's Pennsylvania, it's such a big country outing and a big place for hunters. So of course,
hmm
with being in Northeast PA, it's such a fantastic way if you want to, like, a fantastic place to live if you want to be a hunter or whatever,
right.
or be in a country setting. It's a great place.
Yeah.
But not necessary, maybe not for everyone, but if you're a hunter, this place must be for you.
Yeah.
But of course, with being in the military, it can make basically a lot of pros and cons. Like, of course, maybe with traveling, meeting new people, but it also can be such a big outing depending on where you are, what your identity is, and like what you look like. It does such a big part of not maybe in the military, but also a big part of where we live and
hmm
where we're from in such a huge way, which is
Yeah.
it's crazy. See what the place we live in is how it is.
Yeah.
But like, what are kind of some methods you use currently that help you with your mental health?
So I have a therapist that I talk to, and I go to therapy, which definitely for me helps.
Mhm.
And I have found that I needed to have a person that I could talk to and be honest with and have honest conversations. And for some people, that might be their therapist. For other people, it might be a friend or a family member. But I think you have to kind of open that door and say, hey, I'm going through some stuff. I need you to let me talk and vent and get out my feelings. It doesn't mean I'm going to run and go shoot myself in the head today. Okay. But I just need you to let me talk about my feelings, maybe talk about my suicidal ideations and different things. Taking medicine is also something that can help. I am a big believer in medical marijuana, and there's veterans organizations right now who are pushing for President Biden to de decriminalize and to take, because it's a Schedule 1 drug, which is honestly ridiculous. But these groups of veterans are pushing for Joe Biden to deschedule it, to take it out of being a Schedule 1 drug, so that veterans are able to use it and able to have it as part of their mental health process and their mental health well-being. So that's something that I'm hugely for. I know a lot of vets that do yoga and meditation definitely helps. And one thing that I really try to explain to people is all those things that I listed may work for you or they may not work for you, or maybe like two of those things will work with you. You can use them in conjunction with each other. So you can take medicine and you can do yoga. You can go to therapy and do meditation or do medical marijuana. There's so many different things that you're kind of able to do, and you have to figure out what works for you. Another thing for me is I really just sometimes I need to just take a break, and de-stress. And that it sounds really easy, but it's not easy.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
Not easy.
Um,
Like with me, I'm always like the type of person that loves to work all the time. And with me, whenever I want to de-stress, just relax, that's not gonna work out well. That never works out well. Like whenever I'm bored, I'm like whenever I'm relaxing for like 10 minutes, just to say
yeah, girl,
I'm
I'm bored.
bored. Like I just want to do some
Five
work.
minutes in, yeah, 5 minutes in, I'm sitting down. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit, and I'm like, well, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, what am I gonna do with my life right
Yeah,
now?
yeah, yeah.
But of course with mental health, there's so many ways to really do with your mental health, like journaling, meditating, like you said. Of course, with being in the military, it really is kind of sometimes difficult to find things that are good for you. And of
Mhm.
course, therapist is always good. Journaling, there's so many ways that you could go into it. But of course, we're having mental health. Every person's mental health is different, no matter what.
Mhm.
Not everything that we recommend is going to help them. Maybe it will,
Right.
but it's not for everyone. And
Even medicine, like what helps me might not help you, and
yeah,
vice versa. You know, and there's different types of therapy. You can do like cognitive behavioral therapy, you can do talk therapy, there's light therapy. Like there's just so many different things. And a lot of people don't know that really what's out there. They think it's just you laying on a therapist's couch, and it could be something totally different.
yeah, and sometimes like a lot of people really focus or have their mindset, okay, I'm gonna go to the therapist appointment like it's on TV. Like, but it's like sometimes therapist appointments are like that. I'm not saying there
Yeah.
isn't, but there's I think people sometimes might have some expectations into like, okay,
Yeah.
therapist appointments is just like the television, you know, like
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
but you just came out with a book called 72 Hours of Hell. Like, what is the book about?
So the book is called 72 Hours of Hell, My Time in the VA. And it is a collection of little short stories about me dealing with my mental health and what actually started me kind of on a like a whole mental health journey, and about trying to utilize the mental health system of the Veterans Affairs Hospital in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and also the one in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and how utterly disastrous the situation became
Really?
when I got there. Yes.
Like, what? Now I'm curious. What was like your experience, if you don't mind telling about it?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, I had, as a social worker, we and a therapist, you can do these things called a safety plan.
Mhm.
So if somebody calls you up and says, "Hey, like I'm really going through it, I'm thinking about committing suicide, I'm in a dark hole," and you create a plan with your counselor, with your therapist about, what are you going to do? How can we help? Are you safe? Do you have any weapons? Do you have a bunch of medication that like a friend could take away from you, and all these things? So I talked to my therapist and I did all that. And I needed to go into the VA. And she's like, okay, go in, be honest, tell them what you're going through, and tell them that you want to come in and do like a 72-hour thing. You want to get your meds checked and fixed. You want some intensive therapy. Like, so I'm going into it with kind of a positive mindset of
Mhm.
like, okay, I have this plan, like I got it worked out. I'm a parent, so my daughter's taken care of. I have a dog. I'm a dog mom.
Mhm.
My first son is taken care of, and everything. And then when I got there, it was just completely different. I was treated like absolute garbage. They took my phone away from me, which I knew would happen, but I was told it was going to happen once I got like set in my room and I'm going like to place I'm going to stay. They
Mhm.
took it away, and I still had about 8 or 9 hours that I just sat in the waiting room.
Oh, really?
And I was cold and I was hungry, and they made me change my clothes and put on these like red, ugly scrubs. But again, it short sleep, like I was freezing and I was hungry and I was crying, and nobody would tell me anything. I couldn't have my phone, so I couldn't call my mom. I couldn't call my therapist. And so now at this point, I'm ready to go, and they're telling me that they don't have any space for me in Wilkes-Barre. And I said, okay, well then I want to leave, because my agreement was to come in here and be in Wilkes-Barre because I want to be close to my daughter and my dog. Like, I don't want to go anywhere else.
Mhm.
Well, they said, no, Amber, no, 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 you cannot leave. So now I could not leave. And they told me they were going to call security on me if I could leave, and everything like that. And it just really went downhill from there. And as a social worker, I knew what they were doing wasn't legal. I knew what they were doing wasn't right. But
Mhm.
also, I was so upset and I didn't really know what to do. And they ended up shipping me off to Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and I didn't know where I was going until I was in the ambulance. And they told me they were going to provide a way back for me. They didn't. I had to get a ride home myself. And it just was an overall pretty terrible situation.
Oh my gosh, it's
Yeah.
awful. Like,
And I found
how?
out they're doing that to other veterans, that there is a hospital in California, Loma Linda, where they're doing an investigation about exact same thing that I'm talking about, and to where veterans are coming in to seek mental help and get treatment voluntarily, and then now they're being forced into it involuntarily.
That's awful. Like no one should have to go through that, even if
Yeah.
they're seeking for help, even if they're locked in and like they don't have any space. Like is that's something
Hmm.
like people shouldn't really do with the other people that are going through that, especially having a
Yeah.
kid. Like I
Hmm.
cannot imagine.
Right.
And like how what was it like for you after that experience?
Honestly, I mean, it was really rough, because I, trust was broken, I think. And I really felt like, well, now what am I supposed to do? I
Mhm.
thought this was a way for me to get help. Like, what am I going to do now? And I kind of felt really a little bit hopeless and really down. And then I had to step right back into my life, as a single parent. So as soon as I come home, I'm on mom duty. So I didn't really have a lot of time to try to process everything.
Yeah.
So it was a little hard, but I knew I needed to tell my story because I knew it wasn't right. I wasn't ready to tell anybody then. Like nobody knew, none of my friends knew. Like I told nobody for a very long time. But I knew that I would need to get this out.
And a book is honestly the best way to put it because with a book, you can write anything in a book you want. Like you can
Mm,
tell a different types of books you want. There's so many books out there, and telling your story about that experience is definitely something you like. It's like a way you can talk to yourself without actually talking. Like it's a
right.
great way to kind of get your feelings out there, for
And it's
example.
been nice to hear that it's helped people. And it was on the new releases for like postpartum depression and depression for a while. So it's what I wanted it to be. It was a tool I really wanted people to hear my story and learn something from that and take whatever they can get from it and hope that it would help people. So it's out there. It's available on Amazon Kindle, or you can buy it through Amazon for a paperback.
Ooh, I'm definitely gonna buy the book once I head off. I definitely want to read this book and learn all about it. But before we head off, I want to ask, like, what did you kind of enjoy the most about writing this book?
Kind of the whole process. I'm a little bit of a nerd, so I love to do research and I love a challenge. I had no idea how to do this, how to write a book, nothing. I started off when I first got home from the hospital that night. I recorded what happened. I used voice notes on my phone and I just recorded the whole thing. And then so I already had it there, but the process of like learning how to use Amazon publishing and figuring out how to edit my book and finding an editor, I honestly I really enjoyed the whole entire process. I started on my second book now, so
Ooh.
hopefully at some point that will be done. But yeah, I really enjoyed the whole process of writing.
Like did you self-publish your book or did you have like a
I
publishing?
did. I self-published it. So it's
Oh.
self-publishing through Amazon Publishing. So, but yes.
Yeah, I was curious because I'm actually writing a book currently, so I wanted to see how things were looking out for you. Because I wasn't sure if I was getting a publisher, like spending a lot of money. Because I know a lot
Yeah,
of
see, I didn't have a lot of money at all to put into it. So I was like, I need to do this the cheapest, freest way possible.
yeah.
How does a broke person put
Yeah,
out a
for
book?
me, I'm like a cheap person, so I'm like, I'll just go the cheapest way possible. If
Mm,
that's the cheapest way, then I'm just gonna go for it.
yeah, yeah.
But I want to thank you so much, Amber, for coming on and taking the time to chat with us. Your story is amazing and so inspiring, and I'm so glad you were able to do this. Here, everyone make
Absolutely.
sure to go check out our podcast. And by the way, like before I forget, where can people check you on social media if they want to connect?
So you can find Politics But Make It Fashion. We're on TikTok, Politics But Make It Fashion. We're on Instagram, Politics But Make It Fashion 1. And our Facebook page is called Politics But Make It Fashion.
Amazing. Everyone go check it out. I totally recommend. Such an amazing podcast. I'm not just saying that because you're on, but I'm just saying as a person, it's my opinion. I love it. And I really appreciate everyone listening and taking the time to listen. And make sure to subscribe, review, and stay updated for future episodes. And thank you so much, Amber, for coming on and taking the time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Of
Thank
course.
you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.